Hey everyone, it's Jim
And Charles
from Mellow Amps, and in this episode we're going to start assembling the chassis, but first we've got to get prepped for connecting up the Blue Alps. So this is the actual production prototype, and this is where the white wire, that's the left channel, comes in, and the red wire, the right wire, comes in, and the ground goes to the center. And on the way out of the volume pot to the input of the first grids, we have the red wire. Notice how they're on the same side. In fact, the ground wire is centered, and ground wire is centered, and the red wire is this one here. You see it's marked from Alps. And over here we've got the white wire, and again it's oriented the same way down there. So I'm going to show you how to size them, and yeah, we'll have it all together in just a few minutes. Okay, so here's kit number one, and your wire should look roughly like that. It looks like a bit of a snarl, but don't worry, we're going to get it all neatenized in just a minute. So you just have to approximately center it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to show you how to size these wires. It's a lot easier to do this in place. So this is what carpenters would call, or cabinet makers would call it, an as-built method of construction. So you actually take the physical parts and size them to each other, or fit them to each other. So we always work with the grounds first. So, and whenever you're doing a hookup wire, you don't do the shortest straight length like that, because that's a recipe for disaster. What you want to do is create a nice little loping, lazy kind of a loop. Imagine the wire wants to take its time coming into the connection. It probably doesn't, but it's going to, because we're going to make it. So that makes for a really nice dress, and it also means that if there's any sort of little stress on this wire, that it's not going to stress the joint or the wire length.
That has a little bit of room to work.
Yeah, that's right. And Charles is just going to check which wire goes next on this junction here for me from the build.
Oh, we've got the right is over here on the left-hand side.
Okay, so that's the red wire. So we're going to do the same thing. So a nice loping little loop in like that. Something like that, maybe slightly tighter. There's no right or wrong to this. Just get it somewhere close to where it goes.
It's better to have a little bit more space than not enough.
Yep. And the same goes for here. Just like that. Maybe slightly tighter. And Bob's your uncle. Over here it's the same thing. So
right's going to be on the same side, so that's further out.
So it's got to come all the way over to here. And I'm going to want to do a little bit more lead dress here. So I'm going to show you. Lead dress is just positioning a wire to your advantage. So we don't want it down like this, right? Because that's the signal, and we don't want it close to anything that could have high voltage or noise. What we want it to do is to come in like this. So to do that, you just give it a little bend. Just work the wire until you get it into the shape you want. See how I've done that? And it's just going to sit like that.
I can't really see on camera right now. There we go.
Are my fat fingers in the road again?
They're in the way.
Okay. So something like that would be really nice, I think. And the white wire, well, this is just a short little run. So that's good. And again, we don't want that down and on top of the caps. We want it up like this. And we want it to make a turn in. So I'm going to come in here. I'm actually going to work the wire a little bit. And
that's quite a bit nicer.
Yeah, and I think I want to make that bend a little tighter, so I'm going to move it over a little bit. See how that moves?
Can't see it. Fat fingers.
Fat fingers?
There we
go. So that's a much nicer fit. So some of this is of electrical importance, and some of this is more aesthetics. So if you made nice sweeps on all your wires, they're going to look really good. Okay, so let's get this off and out of the road. And all you're going to do is strip these back a little longer than the blue junction depth. You've got actually an extra junction kicking around somewhere. And so make them slightly deeper, make the strips a little longer than you need so that you can get a piece of shrink on that cleanly and still have room to cut back the finished wire. So I'll do one with you so that you can see what we're talking about. So you see how I'm just a little bit long with my strip? There we go. And probably people would love to see what that dimension is, Charles. No, this is not precise. It just needs to be close. So I think we're looking at about 15 millimeters.
Almost half an inch.
Pretty much a half an inch, I think. But, you know, a little less, a little more, it's going to work fine. So I would tin that, and then I would get a piece of shrink onto it, just like we did down here, same lengths. And then we're going to size them to fit the junction. And I'll meet you back when you've got them all tinned up and shrunk. Okay, so you've got a whole bunch of wires that are tinned and shrunk. You size them to length. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to trim that conductor. So we made them a little long. So just make sure you're on focus here. So I'm just going to cut that down and make sure there. That is a nice fit. Notice how I've not put the shrink deep into the junction. I'm just putting it right up to the edge. Anywhere close to that, that's perfectly fine. And yeah, so get that done and we'll assemble everything together in just a second. Okay, so go ahead and grab your ground wire that you saved way back at the beginning of the video. This is the yellow and green striped wire. Cut it to about 3 inches, which is about 77 millimeters. And we're going to strip it so that one side, strip it and tin it, so that one side will go into the blue junction and the other side will be stripped about the same length and
not tinned yet.
Not tinned yet, and we're going to install that onto the IEC. So I'll do that work and I'll be right back.
All right, well, we've got our second mistake of the build series, not long after the first.
Anyways, this is a really easy job. So just turn up your soldering iron to about 380 C, which is 710 Fahrenheit, and just bring that little piece of wire that you didn't tin through the lug and turn it back, and then just solder it on.
And make sure it's on there solid. This is the ground connection for the whole amp, so give it a tug test when you're done, and then you should be good. And this is the last bit of soldering for the entire kit.
Okay, well done. Okay, so just go ahead and orient your chassis like this. So we're actually, this is
the right side up now.
This is the right side up. You can see how the Alps is positioned. And go and grab
the rest of the top plate assembly, and we're just going to drop it right on here. We're careful to make sure all the wires are inside. And let's take a quick look around here, and that looks really good. And you want to line up the corner holes with the holes in the corner blocks. And we're looking pretty good there.
Yeah, so go ahead and grab some of these really nice hex head M3s. I think they're M3 by 18s. And start them by hand. In fact, I'll show you actually the easiest way to start these is to get just go ahead and grab your M2 bit and start it like this by hand. This is, we're right on the edge.
Let's do it on screen here. There you go.
Okay, once it's started, now the corner blocks are 3D printed and
threaded afterwards.
And yeah, and I cut the threads afterwards. So you don't want to be forcing things, and you can only torque them down so much before you're going to strip them out. So that's why we're going to do them all by hand. So first we get them started so they're all lined up.
There we go.
Okay, now that they're all in, we're going to bring them down. So they were really nice and loose before.
And that just helps align everything too.
So just bring them down by hand. You really don't want to put a big honking screwdriver on this, and you certainly don't want to power drive these in. So just take your time and screw them down. If you've got really weak fingers, go ahead and put a screwdriver on.
But be light with it, be gentle.
Yeah, just snug it until you start to feel a little resistance, and as soon as you feel some resistance, you're on. Okay, excellent. Well, we're really moving along. Okay, what's next, Charles? Okay, so we flipped it over. Let's go ahead and get these wires in, and do a little lead dress if you need to get your wire positioned right. And we start, as always, we start with the ground wires. So this goes in the center of the 3 terminals.
Excuse the fat fingers here. We'll give you a view of it after every one.
Okay, and the red goes on the outside. And
it's looking pretty good.
And the white goes on the inside. Now, if for some reason you reverse the red and white wires, don't worry about it.
Well, as long as you reverse it on the other side as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and take care of it for the other 2 over here going into this side, and we'll see you back here in a second.
Okay, so this is what your leads should look like. Notice how I've done a little tiny bit of lead dress to get everything where I would like it. I've got a little kink in here to lift the red wire up. I could put an even bigger kink. That's all you have to do, is just get in there and work the wire a little bit, and it'll sit sort of where you want it to. And I'd like it to be sort of away from the other signal wire like that, and I'd like that wire to be up a little bit. That's looking really good. Okay, well, we're almost done. Okay, so we've moved to the rear where the IEC is, and as always, start with the ground connection first. So go ahead and do a little bit of lead dress. Give that a little sort of an S shape to it like that. It'll make life easier. Needle nose pliers will help. And where the other yellow and green wire is onto that junction, those are both sides of this are ground connections. So it's a little hard to see because everything's in the road, but
there we go.
Okay, and then just snug that down. Now, these ground connections here, particularly this one here from the IEC, make absolutely certain you've done a good job on that. That's really important. That's your safety ground, and you've got to make sure that that's on properly. Next, we do the neutral wire. And because everybody made it up in advance, it's going to be a really quick, easy job. That goes on the very end. And it should be fairly snug coming on to the tab. If it's not nice and snug, now you don't want it to be so hard you have to be wrenching it on, but if it is a little bit loose, you can come back towards the middle rear of the barrel and just lightly crimp it. You do not want to crimp this on hard or it'll never go on. But the way they're manufactured, they're actually set at the factory to the right amount of tension, so you'll probably find you do not need to adjust it.
Yeah.
So just
it can require a good bit of force to get it on there, so just press and sort of wiggle it. There we go.
Yeah. Now notice how the open part of the barrel is up. That's so that the release tab that's in here, let me see if I can show it to you. There's a little release tab that if you have to ever get these off, you need to come in
and push that down while pulling.
So you would push it down here because it locks, that little tab will lock here. That's what that circle is for, or that hole. Now it probably will help to just come in with a pair of needle nose pliers, hold everything, and then just wiggle that on until it goes on. Boom. And that was a nice solid connection.
Let's give them a closer look at that here. You see how that's locked right in there?
And let's tilt it so that you can see the red dot? Then,
okay.
So we're going to do the hot leg last.
And this is the last bit of wiring on your preamp.
So just get it started. And there we go. And now we're going to test to make sure that that's on snugly. If it moves back and forth a tiny little bit, that's normal. You just don't want it so loose it's flopping around. And I'm going to check the ground wire, and ooh, yeah, we did a good job on the ground wire. So everything is looking really good. Okay. Excellent, everyone. Well done.